So first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for taking time to join us in this kind of virtual format of our 2020 version of our annual ratepayer meetings. So again, typically we would go out and visit our surrounding communities and meet with ratepayers face to face. But again, in kind of the world that we live in, trying to adhere to some of the public health guidelines that are still in place, we felt that this is kind of the best alternative for the time being to get some information out to our ratepayers about some of the activities and some of the programs that Special Areas has been undertaking for the past year. So again, thank you for taking time to watch this virtual version of our ratepayer meetings, and I hope that you do get something out of this as well. So the intent is as we progress through this, hopefully later in the fall, take an opportunity and again get back out to communities and meet with our ratepayers face to face. But again, for the time being, we think that this is kind of the best alternative. So a couple things that I'd like to talk about for those of you maybe firstly that don't know me. I'm Jordon Christianson and I'm chair for the Special Areas Board. A couple things that I would like to maybe just cover off here today with you. Just update in regards to kind of the governance side of Special Areas, both in terms of the Special Areas Board and as well with the Special Areas Advisory Council. I thought I'd take a minute and just talk about kind of our response currently as a result of some of the recent economic challenges that not only the province but globally and nationally that have faced us as well. And then also talk about kind of the response to the pandemic and how we've managed coronavirus and COVID-19 as an organization. And then finally, I'll just wrap it up with a quick update on the Special Areas Water Supply Project, which many of you may have followed for a number of years. So firstly, just an update on the governance side of Special Areas. So many of you may be aware already and maybe have seen or read in our recent newsletter that we have had some changes on the governance side of the organization, both on the board and on our advisory council. So recently, Mr. Brent Horner had handed in his resignation as a council member and on the Special Areas Board effective May of 2020. So as a result of that resignation, we did have to seek out new membership on council and board as well. So on the council side, Mr. Lee Freiberger of Wardlow had put his name forward, and by acclamation, he was the successful candidate. And Lee has joined Special Areas Advisory Council effective May of this year as well. So we're excited to have Lee on board. And then on the Special Areas Board, as Brent transitioned out, we had an election on the board for membership onto the Special Areas Board, and Brad Slorstad is the new member with us on the Special Areas Board. So again, excited to have Brad there as a new member on the board. And again, kind of the board makeup is myself as chair, Brad Slorstad, who represents Special Areas 2, Daryl Swenson, who represents Special Areas 3, and then of course Doug Noble from Special Areas 4. So those four individuals make up the Special Areas Board. So and just finally on that, I'd like to thank Brent for his, I think, just about 25 years of service on Special Areas Advisory Council. I think he was first elected onto council in 1995, and then spent some time on Advisory Council, and then was elected onto the board. I believe it was in about 2011. So really appreciated Brent's time there and his thoughtful and practical approach to issues. And certainly Brent will be missed on the board and the Advisory Council, but we're looking forward to working with Brad and Lee as we move forward. So kind of the next thing I thought maybe I'd cover off is just a response to the recent economic challenges. So again, Special Areas certainly has not been immune to some of the challenges that we face, not only as a result of kind of the pandemic and some of the impacts of COVID-19, but also from some of the challenges faced by just some of the troubled waters faced by oil and gas, in this province and nationally as well. Of course, oil and gas is a big driver of the economy in the eastern side of the province, and as a result, they have a big impact on our tax revenues. And so when things started to shift, in that side of the business, very kind of early on, administration started looking at our projections on tax revenue and tax collections, And we identified approximately $50 million out of a potential $31 million of total tax revenue. We figure about $15 million could be at jeopardy or at risk of uncollection or non-collection. So early on in 2020, we started to make adjustments to both our capital and operational budgets, just in anticipation of a potential shortfall. And of course, from a kind of a municipal perspective, Special Areas has a late tax deadline. Of course, many of you know that taxes aren't due till November 15th. And so we really won't know what's uncollected until that date. But again, in the meantime, just in anticipation and being prepared, we thought that we needed to take action early on, and so started to make changes to our capital and operational budget as a result of that. So kind of initially, some of the changes we made was, again, looking at our capital expenditures. So this included, excuse me, things like equipment purchases, vehicle purchases, as a result of some of our fleet upgrades. We looked at fire hall buildings, municipal infrastructure projects like regional water lines. If some of those purchases and projects could be deferred or delayed or canceled altogether, we did that in an effort to just kind of maintain budget. And then we also looked at some of our seasonal staffing requirements. And as a result of maybe some programming changes, looked hard at the seasonal wage staff, and unless the position and the programming was kind of mission critical, we decided to defer that for the time being, again, just as in an effort to save on some money and to just solidify kind of our budget position as well. So again, we continue to kind of monitor the situation. Obviously, it is we've seen oil kind of stabilize here recently, which I think does bode well. But I think longer term, we want to take kind of a cautious approach to this, and so we continue to watch this on a regular basis and be in contact with, of course, a lot of our big oil and gas ratepayers, just to have kind of an open dialogue with them about what their intent is for 2020 tax notices and their ability to pay Special Areas for their 2020 taxes. So again, it's something that we'll continue to monitor. But again, I think the message here is that from a financial perspective, we are stable. There are definitely levers that we have to pull and tools in our toolbox. But longer term, it was really important to Advisory Council and to the Special Areas Board that we maintain our financial stability and our financial strength. And so we made decisions and adjustments early on in this just to secure that. So maybe the third thing I'll cover off here today is the Special Areas response to the global pandemic and COVID-19 and how we responded to coronavirus. So again, many of you may be aware that we've kind of modified our operations since I'm going to say mid-March. Now it's mid-June, and we're starting to get back to kind of a normal kind of routine in terms of our operations. Staff returned back to the office full-time on June 15th. And we're starting to kind of get back to kind of a regular routine here. We anticipate that our offices will be open to the public on June 22nd. And then again, from the governance side, the board and the Advisory Council will begin meeting face-to-face probably in July as we move forward. So in the meantime, like through this whole pandemic, the board and the council continued to meet, and we did that virtually through Teams meetings. But again, I think we're looking forward to getting back to meeting face-to-face with everybody. I guess just kind of in response to that as well, I do want to take a minute and thank the ratepayers for your consideration and patience through some of these times. I know we changed kind of some of our operations and how you access our offices. And certainly I appreciate the patience and the understanding that the ratepayers demonstrated as we kind of modified our workflows to accommodate some of the public health guidelines. So thank you guys very much for that. And then lastly, maybe quickly, I'll just provide an update on the Special Areas water supply project. So again, this is a project for those that maybe are unfamiliar with it. It's been in the works for many, many years, and kind of from a high level, the idea was to move water from the Red Deer River south of Stettler, and move it into kind of the eastern part of special areas, and deliver kind of a reliable water supply for domestic water use, municipal water use, livestock, a little bit of irrigation on the project, and then some kind of habitat augmentation in terms of wetland stabilization. So recently, I think kind of we're at I'd say a critical junction point for that project. I think council and board have got to make a kind of a decision on how to proceed forward with it. So basically in January of this year, we've completed the kind of full environmental impact assessment on the project, which that report kind of summarizes all the environmental considerations of the project, some socioeconomic analysis of the potential benefits that the project would deliver to the area, and then kind of some design and engineering components on that project as well. So recently, again, kind of late February, early March of this year, we did host a number of open houses where we invited public to come in. They heard presentations on, again, kind of what the environmental impact assessment found, and then kind of outlined some of the options or some of the decisions that the board and the council have to make on the project. And then again, the idea behind that was to solicit feedback publicly on, again, helping the council and the board provide direction on how to move forward with this. And then further to that, we also did put out some kind of online surveys, hard copy surveys that could be mailed back into the office, again, trying to solicit public feedback on what ratepayers and residents think the board and council should do in relation to this project. So today, haven't made a formal decision on it. We will spend some time with council probably in July and review some of the kind of the outcomes from our public open houses, and then some of the feedback that was solicited as well, and then try to make kind of a decision to move forward with the project. So I guess from that perspective, those are kind of the high level topics that I wanted to cover off here this afternoon. Certainly that's not a comprehensive list, but if there's things here that I haven't talked about or haven't addressed that you would like covered off, I've included there kind of my contact information. Please reach out to myself, and if you have any further questions or would like any kind of clarification on any of those things that I've talked about here this afternoon, I'd be happy to answer those questions. So I'll leave it at that, and thank you very much for participating.